The way I got into MBTI was just truly because of the James Frank Drake collab back in the day, where they tried to put MBTI types on the political compass, because I used to be a political freak till this day, I still am. And so it only makes sense to honor them by making a video, just recreating their video, just in a better way and a much more theory based way, and just overall a better way. But before I start the video, I'd just like to put a disclaimer that just because you have that type which is more likely to be more leaning that way or that other way because of the theory, does not necessarily mean that you do not have free will, and does not necessarily mean that you cannot be any political ideology just because of your type. It's just that your type is more or less more likely to be in this place than that other place. It's very difficult to be simultaneously a INFJ and a ultra egoist. Does that mean that it's impossible? No, but it's just less likely, is what I'm trying to say. And before I start the video as well, I'd like everyone to go take this test and answer those questions. Obviously, you have to know your MBTI type and your political political compass position. So if you want to know your political compass position, it's very simple. You go to this is the best version of the political compass test. So you go here, you choose your options, and then obviously after you choose your options, you just answer depending on how you view things, what your politics are, obviously, because that's what the test is trying to do. It's trying to measure on the axis of economics, of individual economics versus collective economics, on the axis of authoritarianism versus libertarianism, where do you lie? And so answering the questions randomly got me this position, which is just by all means just pretty much centrist, and so this would still be accurate. And then to know your MBTI type, here are the 3 ways explained very simply in front of you. If you really want to figure out your MBTI type, here are the 3 ways: the worst, the middle way, and the best way. I have more videos explaining this in more detail if you really want to get into the MBTI community and you're new here. But for everyone else, I want to start off with the functions first, because that's what the types are: function stacks. So it will make a lot more sense if I start with the functions, as that will explain a whole lot. So let's start with the I. All the functions will be to some degree difficult, some more than others. For example, I'll struggle with SI, I won't struggle as much with NI. TI is really individualistic and really self-interest centered. So, not exactly a lot to go off, but, it's easy to make the argument for why it would be definitely more on the libertarian side and definitely more on the right side. Although, obviously, all of that could be discussed in more detail. And then TE, on the other hand, a bit more difficult. Again, what's your TI framework and what's your TI framework and what's your FI framework and all those other frameworks. You could have a perfectly valid TI reason to have any other position. This is just based on the theory, and I'll be giving a reason behind every single one of those positions. TE more communally based. They don't mind authority as much. The function itself does not mind authority as much more communally based. And so based off that rationale, I'm more likely to say that it's more rather collectivist and more rather authoritarian than TI would be, which would make sense as they're kind of contradictory functions in some ways. Now, when going to FI, again, FI has kind of the same thing here as TI. It's more individualistic, more self-interest centered. So makes more sense to put it just about right the same position here. When it comes to FE, again, same thing we're looking at here, more communally based, much more care for the collective interest. Not that I'm saying that one political position has to be this way or another. It's just, what are they more likely to be? And that's what I'm basing this whole thing off. You could make a pretty good argument for why libertarian right ideologies are good for the collective, or why authoritarian left ideologies may be good for you. It's just, this disclaimers ahead. So yeah, don't take this as a course in politics. As I know, SI is a very difficult one. Now, see the SI is often influenced by what the prior standards and what the prior understanding of things are. And I really, if I really had to put it, SI is much more of a control function, and so SI would be going into the direction of authoritarianism. But every individual person's SI is quite different, which is why it's difficult to put SI as a function in one position or another. On the other hand, much easier to put is SE. SE has the same vibe of TI, FI, and all of those lovely boys, because SE doesn't like being controlled. It likes gathering the facts. It likes being out there. It doesn't like government regulation, etc. Same thing with NE. So it's really just a pretty clear axis here. Now, an I, when it comes to an I is also kind of is on the same direction here as SI. It likes control, doesn't really like the chaos. It likes long-term planning. So central government planned governments would be much more to the liking of an I. And this is kind of just a crude way to put the functions on the political compass. Now going to the types, and this is the normal types. There are also the jumper types, which I'll get into in a second. But if I had to just freestyle put every type here, just based off the prior established logic, then it should be pretty easy to put them around here, for example. Put this boy around here. Who else also belongs here? ENFPs, ESTPs, and the ESFPs, and the ENTPs, for example. And then you start putting everyone else in this direction, just like this. Now, if I tends to be more, I'd say more in the direction of right, because rightism is always often associated with well, let's just say selfishism, and FI is more in that direction, generally speaking. And I tends to be more authoritarian than SI, because NI, well, it's always looking to try and make plans for the world. While SI is just kind of trying to maintain its own thing, so naturally NI will be tendentially more authoritarian. This is my very crude putting the types on the scale, and as you see, unlike the Frank James Drake type compass, we're seeing really just kind of a reflection of just kind of a symmetry between them, and not real specific exact ideology positions in specific here. We're just putting him, okay, that one is more likely to be more libertarian and right, and that one is more likely to be more authoritarian and left, etc. like that. Now here's the funny thing, right? With jumper types, it becomes more complicated, because the INTP who preferred the TI and then the NE, so both which are more libertarian and more right, now he's a bit of a centrist. Why? Well, he has SI, which is more authoritarian, tendentially speaking, but TI, which is more tendentially, well, libertarian and right. So it's a bit complicated now, isn't it? But if I had to go off this, it's gonna be more or less somewhere around this. Now this is just very, very, quite very crude. Like, and again with ESFJs and ENFJs, which used to be more of an NI, so more of an SI, so again more authoritarian. Now they're NE. Now it's or NE or SE. So you see how they're kind of like reflecting, and I'm doing this on the fly, so there is easily inaccuracies with this. ENTJs, which used to be, okay, so more of the direction here. Now this will not be mathematically correct or anything. This is rather just the general idea. The point of this is just to kind of give you the general idea here. So now why am I putting ESTP and ENTP, for example, in there instead? Well, simply because, well, now the ENTP does not just simply care about an ENTI, which are both more libertarian and more right. Now he cares about FE. So again, putting them more towards that other direction as well. So it's a very complex thing when you introduce jumper types. And now the INTJ will be more here, because and I a bit authoritarian, but as well if I, which is pushing him much more towards that direction. It is quite the fascinating thing. And yeah, this is roughly kind of how a crude way, how it looks in a crude way. Yeah, it's very interesting how symmetrically positioned they are, the jumper types versus the non-jumper types. And then if we were to duplicate this page, and then if I was to go here on every type, here every one of those 16 types, to put them on the other 16 types, then we're gonna get something. Okay, there's an easier way to do this. I just remove this, copy, like that, and then we go here, paste. Isn't this fascinating? It quite is for me. It quite literally is how symmetrical they are here, like, or asymmetrical. Just like I'm losing words. I don't have enough words to describe geometrical positions, unfortunately. Should probably get back into that. And here's how that looks. Isn't that fascinating? I think it's quite fascinating, in fact. Yeah, so in the next video, subscribe and turn on the notifications and join our Discord server, because in the next video we're gonna be reviewing the statistics to see which types are actually where, like, statistically speaking. So it's gonna be interesting.